Recording in progress. Recording stopped.
Testing 1, 2. Platform, can you hear me?
Loud and clear, Mario.
Platform, can you hear me?
Audible, sir.
Hmm?
Recording in progress.
The House Chairperson.
There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer or meditation. Please be seated. Honorable members, before we proceed with today's business, I wish to announce that I have been informed that Ms. Tanya Lyons has been appointed as Under-Secretary, House Plenaries with effect from 1 September 2024. This position, which reports to the Secretary of the National Assembly, is responsible for House proceedings and programming matters, amongst other. We want to extend our congratulations to Ms. Lyons. Honorable members, the only item on the order paper today is the statement by the Minister of Police on actions taken by the South African Police Service to deal with the threat posed by those committing acts of extortion in South Africa. I've been informed that the Minister's statement has been distributed. Thank you, Honorable Minister. I now invite you to the podium.
Thank you very much, House Chair. We welcome this opportunity to make a statement to the House on threats posed by the current wave of extortions and other related crimes in parts of the country. The 4 provinces To start with, Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, Western Cape and Eastern Cape currently carry 73% of crime levels in South Africa. The rest of the provinces carry the balance. The gravity of these crimes alone, including extortions, is of serious concern to us over and above their concentration. Extortions have been emerging over time and has now reached levels where all communities in our country beyond the 4 provinces indicated above have become very angry, bitter, and agitated. The pain has gone very deep. The mood expressed in communities all around the country is also reflective of statements that have been made in the House unanimously against these crimes in the short past. Somewhere in the background, the current socio-economic conditions are militating against low crime levels in the country and need to be addressed urgently by this House and also by the executive. The modus operandi of the perpetrators involved in these heinous acts is well known. Most of them are individuals who do not want to work, but rather choose to parade as armies of murderous parasites that must be fought and rejected by society as a whole. They are often armed, operating in groups and instill fear and chaos. The relative silence of communities and low reporting is all due to these fears. So we offer communities toll-free numbers, we communicate, we talk to them, but there's a lot of fear out there. Police, of course, led by Ministerial, are hard at work fighting these crimes on a daily basis. Among recent operations is where suspects identified through intelligence as extortionists were confronted in Milnerton in Cape Town. 4 suspects were fatally wounded in a shootout with police, while 4 were admitted in hospital with wounds, and 2 ran away and escaped. In the Eastern Cape, operations are underway and we're focusing in Mthatha and Nelson Mandela Bay on similar crimes, including illegal occupation of buildings and stock theft, among others. 12 cases have recently been reported on the hotline and investigations are underway. We are observing signs of resistance among criminals, but want to say that police will prevail. They will have to prevail and will make sure that they prevail. We must also mention that we see shocking incidents of lowest morality where church services, funerals, and other family-related functions get disrupted by these extortionists. In Gauteng, 3 criminals were arrested in Bronkhorstspruit 3 weeks ago and on activities related to extortions. Soweto is also a place that has received our attention in the incidents of extortion. In Mpumalanga, 3 arrests were made recently in cases of extortion and fighting over turf on the same purpose. In Free State, the target of extortionists include pensioners and people who receive RAF. Generally, there's more extortions going on in the communities than meet the eye. This requires more intelligent operations on our side. And we know we have to strengthen intelligence, we have to improve intelligence, we have to find information on our own in terms of profiling these criminals. Because communities, as I say, they do report, but not enough. In the context of above, the whole government approach, we have initiated signing of cooperative agreements with provincial and local governments with operational plans, all seeking to integrate our resources against crime. Currently, the operational plan is being rolled out here in the Western Cape and Cape Town with its new 6 sub-districts that are going to make it much more easier for us to to police these areas jointly with city police, with private companies, with law enforcement and CPFs. The model will be replicated in all metros in the country. The operational plan will include CPFs and private security companies, as I've indicated. The Eastern Cape and Nelson Mandela have agreed on the operational plan, and it is currently being rolled out, and we will be launching it soon. We're meeting Gauteng on Thursday this week on the same program. Next will be KZN on the 19th and the 20th of this month. All these metros coincide with the concentration of crimes in the country. And this alignment will help us fight much more effectively in an aligned way in terms of resources. We're also holding a series of meetings with with sister departments on collaboration against crime as per National Integrated Crime Prevention Strategy. This Friday, we're meeting as JCPS cluster to tighten up our act and to come up with better synergies. Deadline for us to complete national policing policy is the end of October this year. This will, among other things, deal with police stations, just the definition of a police station, just the norms and standards of a police station, urban or rural. We need that so that we define what a police station is. And it will relate to infrastructure and application of such norms, including where police live in their barracks and all of that. We believe traditional leaders and communities have a role to play, and they will be engaged. And finally, legislation reviews are underway. 1 is SAPS Amendment Bill, 2, CIRA, 3, CSPS Act, 4, Critical Infrastructure Amendment Bill, and 5, overhaul of Criminal Procedure Act by Department of Justice and as police who are participating. And this is important. We have our eye, among other things, on things like parole. We think that quite a large number of criminals get paroles unduly and prematurely in a number of cases, while they still should be sitting in jail. We'll be going through this with the portfolio committee, and we hope that we'll go through this financial year so that we improve the way we deal with criminality in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The next speaker is the Honorable Skosana.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Lawlessness and poverty have become a defining feature of the ANC of Mr. Ramaphosa. The MK party has observed a sharp increase in extortion cases. This is a troubling indicator of the country's economic struggle. Compared to the glorious years of His Excellency President Zuma, the current surge in extortion incident coincides with a significant rise in unemployment, economic downturn, and the scarcity of opportunities. It is ironic how the years of His Excellency President Zuma were dubbed the wasted years. Quite absurd, and it's madness. The MK party also wants to highlight the ineffective consequence management, which is exacerbated by the weakness in the South African Police Service Act, particularly Section 40, Minister, and the 2016 SAPS disciplinary regulations. The inadequacy perpetuates misconduct and undermines the public interest. Furthermore, the lack of rigorous application of these laws enables some of the ROC SAPS members to engage in extortion and other forms of misconduct with impunity. Citizens are terrified of reporting crimes like extortion because some police are alleged to be involved. en route to complete a fiber installation project in Dr. Kenneth Kakawunda District Municipality. A contractor encountered two individuals claiming to represent the Klerksdorp community. According to the South African Police Service, these matters were reported. These men demanded employment opportunities and protection fee of 50,000, threatening the contractor to vacate the site and return with the payment. This incident highlights the dire consequences of economic hardship and the soaring unemployment rates. The city of Cape Town, under the DA leadership, has 64% case of extortion. Quite interesting. They say where they govern more than any other proposal. This phenomenon is not unexpected given the city history of economic exclusion, where Africans and colored communities have been systematically marginalized from participating in the economy of this country. The stark reality is that business is predominantly owned and operated by white individuals, while employment opportunities are often afforded to foreign nationals, leaving local residents to face limited job prospects, particularly in the sector like hospitality and domestic work. These days, the term construction mafia has been prevalent in the media, as you said, Minister, here. But discussing extortion and the so-called construction mafia is in investigators' scope, including the large establishment like WBHO, Group 5, Murray and Roberts, or if solely focused on small black-owned business fighting a share of the market. Are these industry giants, which have historically dominated the construction sector, also being scrutinized for potential engaging in extorting practice, or is it inquiry limited to small players? The MK manifesto is very clear, which we dub People's Mandate, presents an 8-pillar plan centered on transformation of initiatives such as expropriation land without compensation. The nationalization of SAP and the mines has to happen. The nationalization of SAP and the mines has to happen. Through this mandate, the MK party emphasized that the neglecting these fundamental issues will lead to government to merely treat the symptoms rather than address the underlying cause of societal problems. The MK party unequivocally condemns and does not encourage extortion. We call on the coalition government to eradicate conditions provided fertile ground for this criminality. We are calling the coalition government to do that. We are calling, the studies have shown positive correlation between crime and poverty. Finally, the MK party are calling the IPD to urgently investigate the complicity of some sub-members who are involved in extortion. Lami lama felelo ngizokuthi la eCape Town bengikhamba namapolisa abhadala i-protection fee, minister. Amapolisa arente bogugu lethu. Wabhaca uprincipal udutshuliwe esikolweni e-Eastern Cape. Daylight. Uprincipal utitsha umkhulu. Imraro le igcala musinto le ingakhona ulungiseka. Uma amachuguluko lapha kini ningawenza ngendlela efaneleko. Into engizoyitsho kuwena ukuthi umphakathi uyalila minister. Ningakhuluma abanye bashouta masikhulu khulumako. Mara iqiniso libhlungu angithi. Iqiniso libhlungu liyahlaba. Mara ngifuna ukutsho ukuthi amachuguluko la ekhaya eMzansi ukuthi enzakale kufuneka ukuthi abaholi basidosele ngendlela erehe. Ngoba nje ngifuna ukuyibeka nje icace nisifaka ngemgodini ngiyamthokoza.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The next speaker is the Honorable Cameron. Order, Honorable Members.
Thank you, Honorable House Chair. Honorable members, all protocol observed. Extortion is a rapidly escalating threat that affects every single layer of society in South Africa, from large corporations to smaller township businesses and even our schools. It is deeply rooted, and it's an issue that is jeopardizing the economic stability and tears at the social fabric of every single part of our country, and it has become a national crisis. Today, I dedicate this speech to the brave civilians that were violently assaulted by members of the Presidential Protection Unit, specifically those 8 SAPS members that were meant to protect the Deputy President on the N1 in Johannesburg in 2023. I mention this because, like an extortion racket, civilians are unfortunately sometimes held captive by the employment of rogue elements in our law enforcement agencies. These isolated rogue elements unfortunately then cheapen the ranks of the majority and thus the thousands of professional officers and dedicated cops that work so extremely hard. And even though they're on the minority, these bad actors impact not only their fellow officers, but erode public trust that our law enforcement agencies so desperately need. This very incident underscores the need that we urgently must address the misconduct within our own ranks before we can effectively and sustainably combat the existential extortion epidemic facing this country. The courage of these specific victims and whistleblowers like Babita Deokaran, Thomas and Kluter Murray, who confront corruption and injustice head-on, are powerful reminders of the vital role that integrity plays in our collective effort to oppose those who exploit and oppress our communities. Extortion is not a new phenomenon in South Africa, but it's now reached a point of crisis. Recent events, such as the closure of Dr. Anele Yako's ophthalmology practice in Mthatha, who was forced to shut down his practice and go into hiding, highlights the destructive impact these crimes have on individuals, their communities, and the essential services that they are meant to provide. Extortion actually acts as an additional illegal tax on an already strained economy, draining businesses of much needed funds. Its spread is fueled by 3 key factors. The first one is the continued growth of violent, organized armed groups, a perception of legitimacy, or an element of fear they cultivate within different communities in South Africa. The inability or unwillingness of state institutions to respond effectively is the third and final factor. A further example is the continued attacks on the Inter-Cape bus service between the Eastern Cape and the Western Cape, including numerous cases of intimidation and violence, even murder, committed by known taxi extortion mafia figures. Attacks, extortion, intimidation of commuter transport systems threaten the livelihoods of millions and must be addressed urgently. Extortion syndicates challenge the very legitimacy of the state. Their demands for local taxes, similar to those seen in regions where gangs or militias have completely taken over the state functions, and they appear especially where state institutions are either weakened or compromised. To extort requires little more than the ability and willingness to intimidate victims and mete out violence. No sector is immune, from public transport, construction, and small businesses to critical public services like healthcare and education. It has also become pervasive in our nightlife economy, often linked to the drug trade and others. And if unchecked, it will spread to other sectors, and it will be exacerbated by cases of corruption and bribery in law enforcement. The impact of extortion on our communities is absolutely profound. It creates a climate of fear, stifling entrepreneurial spirit, and deters investment. In townships where small businesses are lifelines, extortion can ruin businesses, cost jobs, and devastate livelihoods, if not only take them, which in turn worsens poverty and further social instability. The construction industry is plagued with construction mafias and demands a share of contracts. They demand experience and thus causes project delays. It increases costs and even abandonment of those projects, further deterring investment and harming our fragile economy. In the public sector, extortion groups target essential services like waste collection, water and sanitation, and road maintenance, impacting the poorest communities the worst. These criminal acts not only disrupt the daily life, but also undermine the trust in public institutions that are meant to serve and protect, like the South African Police Service and even the National Prosecuting Authority. They use terror to ensure that their victims are silenced, and they obviously then, as the Minister correctly said, stifle crime reporting. The fight against extortion is not a unique one in South Africa. It's a global challenge. It requires innovative responses, and Japan's successful efforts to curtail the Yakuza's influence offer valuable lessons in curbing protection payments, and countries like Italy that have seen success by simple community-based projects where they have also engaged businesses to then publicly reject any form of mafia involvement. Community-driven initiatives on grassroots level, supported by effective state action, can empower communities and create a collective against extortion. It's simple. Our joint response just simply cannot be business as usual. Combating extortion requires a multifaceted approach. We need specialized law enforcement units on combating extortion and organized crime, capable of gathering intelligence, infiltrating syndicates, and ensuring robust prosecutions. In conclusion, there's no way that we can solve this crisis if we don't have integrated incentives for both the prosecuting authority and the police. If they don't work hand in hand, we cannot expect.
Honourable Member, your time has
this
expired.
fight. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is the Honourable Dr. Ndlozi.
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. Deputy President, again, the Minister has not paid attention to the gravity of what we are dealing with. The Minister came here and he spoke. Quite frankly, I don't know that the people of South Africa have confidence that the police are going to attack extortionists. There is no comprehensive crime prevention strategy. And until that happens, you're always going to run after the fact. After extortion has happened, you'll be running after people. What is your plan? What did you say today? You're going to work with provinces, you're signing agreements. That has been done before. You're going to work with CPFs and security companies. That has been done before. That's your strategy. You came here to tell us that. Extortionists find themselves and express themselves in four aspects. One, which is a long-standing practice in the clubs. And in the clubs, there is a strong phenomenon of security companies. You're going to work with which security companies? They are involved themselves in telling clubs that they must be employed or else they're going to have to be attacked in all forms of violence and be ran into the ground. It's very clear here in Cape Town. Very big and strong and violent security companies are the ones that are running the clubs and on the basis of a proper extortionist network. The construction mafia, the 30%ers, what are you going to do with them? There's nothing that has come out today as to what you're planning to do with the people who are extracting 30% and rendering the state literally dysfunctional at a local level. Cyberbullying. A lot of women are taken videos during sex and the men threaten, for an example, to expose those videos in order to keep them in relationships or to extort money from them. And there's a lot as well of extortionist tendencies within the cybercrime space. Finally, public institutions, hospitals, schools. We are told that Mercantile Hospital, one of the doctors was told that he must bring 50,000 protection fee or face violence. A male nurse at Tata School for the Blind and Deaf and his family were held at gunpoint on Tuesday. 2 armed men demanding 50% protection fee. Numerous businesses in Umtata, in recent weeks, Sasol Garage on the main road was closed. People are demanding protection fee. In everything that you have said today, I don't know that we are getting confidence. What do the people of South Africans want to hear? One, They don't want to hear that you don't know these criminals and you are saying the reports are not coming to the police stations. That is dishonest. By the way, you're the only people who don't know these criminals that are extorting communities. Only the police in South Africa are claiming ignorance. Our people know. And the reason the police are claiming ignorance is because the police are embedded. It's because correctional services is embedded. There are people who come from prison who are convicted of murder, who are transported outside, commit heinous violent crimes, murder and assassinations, come back into prisons. When you're looking for them and you're reporting them, police say those people have been arrested already. What is your strategy regarding these activities? You do not have. So what did you come here to Parliament to do? PRMT exercise. This government of National Ndondoni is not going to succeed if it is obsessed with media. You've got to have a comprehensive, concrete strategy that is based on the lived experience of our people to combat crime. Don't come here for a PR stance. You don't have a strategy yet, and it's Katsa Kosiape. What must be done? Go and implant counterintelligence capabilities. We know these gangs, our people will tell you. 2, build internal state capacity. Let us do away with tenders. Tenders have crippled the local state. Many of those workers, let's insource them. Let the government build schools directly, build clinics directly. It will halve the crime of extortion in our country. The HODs in Ekurhuleni, in Tshwane, in Johannesburg, withhold payments of contractors. Some of them are crippling black businesses. They must get bribed or they don't get paid. Arrest these administrators. Let us see you raid the administration to disarticulate it from extortion. Finally, please use digital and AI technologies. Implant cops with crime and GPS so that you know where the cops are, who they are talking with, who they are seeing
Honourable
at all
Member,
material times.
your time
That
is
you
now
can speak about the
expired.
crime strategy, not the PR exercise you came here to perform.
The next speaker is the Honourable Tebekulu.
Thank you, our chairperson or members. Extortion has recently gripped the social consciousness of South Africans, becoming increasingly pervasive and organized. In a challenging economic climate, extortion contributes to rising unemployment, as seen in the recent closure of private hospital facilities in Mthatha, Wazakele. Accordingly, it imposes an extra financial burden on citizens who are forced to bear increased transport costs. Business owners across various industries are constantly balancing their aspiration with a pervasive sense of fear. The fees extorted by these criminals never appear in the accounting records. From the closure of Bear Hall in Long Street to the death of a 64-year-old vendor in Wallacedene, Kraaifontein, the message is unmistakably comply or suffer the consequences. It is crucial to recognize that a climate of fear among community members and victims is fundamental to the success of extortion. It is impossible to quantify the way in which extortion hinders economic growth and development. However, the psychological impact on victims remains immeasurable. The infrastructure for operating business in South Africa belongs to the democratic state. This is supported by the fact that South African Revenue Services, as an organ of state, is mandated to collect revenue. The act of extortion undermines the rule of law, or as the global initiative observed, that extortion aims to control some aspects of economic, social, political life, and squeezes out or supplement legitimate forms of government. Furthermore, it is important to note that extortion helps sustain criminal governance. This pervasive fear is linked to the fact that extortion is difficult, if not impossible, to prosecute collectively. Therefore, addressing this crisis necessitates a collective approach, collective approach, I must say. Put differently, working together, sharing information that helps build effective strategies that benefit the collective community that is exposed to extortion. New approaches to intelligent policing are needed to address this phenomenon. However, the first step is to allocate the necessary resources, provide thorough training, and better equip police officers to effectively handle violent confrontation. I must say, Honorable Chairperson, lezi zinkomba zokuthi lelizwe kwathi akuyona i-Banana Republic, kodwa njengamanje sibona libheke eweni okukhomba ukuthi impela liya ekuthenini kube i-Banana Republic ngezenzo ezenzakala phambi kwamehlo ababusi, kodwa kube kuncane abakwenzayo ukubhekana ney'nselelo. Kuyadabukisa khona ukusho ukuthi ukungabibikho kwe-intelligence emaphoyiseni ezwe lethu ikhona kakhulukazi okuyimbangela ukuthi kwenzeke lezi zinto njalo sisukuma sekonakele bese siyobopha. Asikwazi ukubuka izinto zingakenzeki ukuze siyinqande, sivikele isizwe, sivikele amabhizinisi ethu, sivikele nezwe lakithi ekuthenini lithathwe zigilamkhuba njengamanjena ezimatasa. Lapho kufaka ingxenye yamaphoyisa athile, kufaka ingxenye yombutho wamasosha athile, ayingxenye yokwelekelela ukungcola phakathi kwezwe lethu. Hlonishwa, kuyoba kuhle uhulumeni wethu asukume.
Honourable member, your time is now expired. Thank you. The next speaker is the Honourable Sauls.
Thank you, House Chair, and greetings to the Deputy President, to the ministers, to the House. Greetings in Jesus' name. Mwenke ahuniki. It will be disingenuous of me to remind everyone in the House or the minister of the ugly face of crime within our country when the minister came before us and transparently admitted to the severity of the levels of crime. Einstein says if he had an hour to fix the world, he would use 55 minutes to understand the problem and 5 minutes to fix it. Honorable Minister, your statement reveals that you sought first to understand the problem. And you came here to indicate to us that you are now in your 5 minutes to attempt to fix it. You came here and you transparently stated to us you didn't come to sugarcoat our crime levels to fool the country. You came here and you were specific. You said that the crime levels here is at 73%. We applaud you, Minister, in the government and the government to approach with province and local governments to integrate resources against crime. We also ask the cooperation. We also ask the cooperation of traditional leaders and all of our communities in rural and urban areas to work with police and to assist them to arrest these extortioners to make our communities safer. We ask the Minister's Department to closely monitor the SEPS hotline and follow up on all reported cases. There needs to be protection of our whistleblowers instead of our people being forced to pay protection fees for criminality. We ask the Minister to move to paying crime with punishment that is immediate and long-lasting. Minister, we trust that your department will root out corruption in your department. Minister, we will support you to put plans in place to move from being a reactive department to being a proactive department that restores the hopes of our people, but also focus on strengthening ties with the justice system so that there are actual prosecutions that takes place, because oftentimes communities are in fear because they can report on who is responsible, but then those very people come back into our communities. Crime, Mr. Minister, is like a slippery snake. But I believe as the House knows my faith in Scripture, that you should be like a Moses when he faced
Honourable
snake
member, your
and
time
did
is
not take
now
it by the head,
expired.
but take it by the tail, so we can say you have crime under control.
The next speaker is the Honourable Denner.
Thank you, House Chair. Honourable House Chair, the crime of extortion, whereby criminal networks demand payoffs from businesses in exchange for, in some cases, protection from these mafias themselves, or on some or other perceived grounds that infringe upon these businesses' right to exist and trade freely, has cost the South African economy about 68 billion rand thus far. As if private sector businesses don't have enough to cope with extremely poor service delivery in South Africa in general, and a government that far too often used to scapegoat the private sector for everything that went wrong, extortion has become one of the worst millstones around the neck of businesses in our modern history. The quarterly crime statistics released last week revealed that extortion has more than doubled from the same quarter in the previous year, with Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal leading in the numbers of cases reported in the country, and experts say extortion syndicates are not restricted to only construction, as so many of us know, but vary also and include, amongst others, housing, the taxi industry, the hospitality industries, and we've heard of many other examples here today. Crimes of extortion often are coupled with the threat of violence or real violence against business owners, their workers, and more often than not, their families. And I think the Minister described it very aptly by calling them armies of murderous parasites. And Minister, that's exactly what they are. It is no wonder then that the crime of extortion is underreported, because much like in the cases of GBV, many victims are afraid of that the repercussions for reporting these crimes will lead to further violence. This means that the cost of this growing crime trend is probably much more than the estimated 6 billion rand that it has cost the South African economy thus far. These criminal syndicates are also not region-specific, but have started spreading from urban areas to smaller rural towns and communities across the country, disrupting development and undermining economic stability. As was mentioned numerous times, reporting of these crimes are very low. It is therefore of the utmost importance, Minister, that the victims of these crimes are truly supported and protected so that they are enabled to report these crimes before they become entrenched. Agbare voorsitter, die VF+ waarsku al etlike jare dat hierdie misdade in die kiem gesmoor moet word. As daar op ons waarskuwings ag geslaan is, sou ons nie nou hier gewees het met hierdie probleem wat elke dag al ewig groter word nie. Nietemin, ons is nou hier en is die plig van die regering van nasionale eenheid om die gemors van die verlede skoon te maak, sodat ekonomiese vooruitgang, werkskepping en die welstand van die Suid-Afrikaanse gemeenskap verseker kan word. Daarom verwelkom die VF+ die planne van die minister van polisie wat hier aan ons vandag voorgelê is. We would have liked to see more details, Minister.
Member, your
Yes,
time is now expired.
that's a pity. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The next speaker is the Honourable James.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. The issue of extortion syndicates in our country has spiraled dangerously out of control, becoming a crisis that strikes at the core of our economy and society. This isn't just about crime. This is about government's inability to serve and protect our communities and our businesses. Extortion rackets have spread like cancer, threatening our economy, destroying businesses, business confidence, and terrorizing our communities. No sector is immune from this notorious construction mafias to now even local businesses that are under siege. Look no further than in the Eastern Cape, where businesses are being driven out of business. It is not an isolated issue, it's systemic, cutting across all sectors, and no community or business is safe under this government's watch. Minister, you have inherited a crisis, no doubt created by the incompetence of your predecessor. For too long, government's lack of a coherent, zero-tolerance approach has allowed these criminal networks to embed themselves deeper into our communities. We are a nation of laws, yet extortionists operate with near total impunity. The facts speak for themselves. It's either police are in their pockets, they don't know how, or they are compromised. We cannot ignore the glaring possibility that these syndicates are politically connected, as some reports indicate. The most severely impacted are always our most vulnerable, laat ek nie daar gaan nie. Their dignity is systemically stripped away by an indifferent government that only takes action when it's too much, when it's uncontrollable. This isn't just a fight against crime, it's a fight to restore dignity of our communities and to protect the most vulnerable amongst us. We must hold those in power accountable. We need a police force that will act decisively without fear or favor and dismantle these syndicates. It is unacceptable for fear and corruption to rule the streets, while those elected to service look the other way or jump to action when it's too late. Our communities deserve better. And it is our duty to demand better, that the law serves the people, not the few, and certainly not those who profit from this racket and chaos. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Thring.
Honourable House Chairperson, the ACDP welcomes the news from the Minister that the South African Police Service is taking major steps to combat extortion and protection rackets in the nation. These practices are perpetrated across the country. Organized crime syndicates operate with strong connections within local communities, many of whom live in fear. Extortionists are often aided by corrupt police or government officials who protect these criminals, obstruct investigations, or even participate in the crimes themselves, as seen by the arrest of Captain Wilfred Kikwa, who appeared in the Blue Downs Magistrate Court on extortion charges. Syndicate methods involve violence and assassinations, holding up major infrastructure and housing projects. Their tentacles reach from the top construction companies and businessmen and women to electrical engineers, local fiber installers, bus companies, even a school, a deaf school for children in the Eastern Cape. Honourable House Chairperson, evidence is key in prosecution. Yet, if victims report the crime to the authorities, many live in fear. This has been exacerbated by the ineffectiveness of police in providing protection or pursuing justice. Swift prosecution is essential before communities resort to vigilante justice. Additionally, as one constituent commented, our whole criminal justice and legal system is unsuited to what is happening, referring to the extortion, and arguably is not fit for purpose. The ACDP notes that SAPS and other law enforcement agencies have lacked the resources, the training, and manpower necessary to effectively combat organized crime and extortion. This includes inadequate technology and forensic capabilities, and is also evidenced by the fact that over the last 5 years, 722 extortionists were arrested, but only 52 found guilty and sentenced, which equates to a dismal and shameful 7% conviction rate. The ACDP minister last week called on you to improve cooperation with all crime-fighting agencies in order to increase conviction rates. Honourable House Chairperson, the ACDP laments the cold-blooded murder of a 64-year-old granny shot in her head by extortionists in Kraaifontein because she was unable to pay their fees. May our Gogo's death never be in vain and never go unpunished. This extortion ring must be smashed and no stone left unturned in bringing these murderous extortionists to book. I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Kwankwa. Honorable Kwankwa. Honorable Kana.
Mtshama xitulu na khensa. Nkhensa ku nyikiwa nkarhi. Khensa ku nyikiwa nkarhi. Holobye. The police must prevail. They have to prevail because we are not safe. They have to prevail because businesses are not safe. The police have to prevail because pensioners are not safe. Communities are not safe. The extortion gangs and rackets are terrorizing all of us. Doctors running practices are being targeted. Informal traders are a target. Spaza shop and small businesses are a target, including construction sites that have become battleground. This has become a pandemic. It is spreading like wildfire, or even COVID-19. It's no longer just an urban or city pandemic. It has spread to deep rural areas of our country. These gangs target vulnerable people who are trying to make a living under already difficult conditions. That today you are making this statement is a proof that extortion rings pose a significant threat to our communities. So what are the conditions that gives rise to this pandemic? We know one is unemployment, and secondly is impunity. Because even when arrested, these criminals will be released in few days or weeks. People feel that the police are no longer protecting them, forcing them to pay protection fees. The trust levels between the police and communities have broken down, as many see the police working to protect the criminals rather than protecting the victims. We must also be honest with ourselves. The spread of the extortion pandemic points to a failure of crime intelligence, which I know, Minister, you have committed to sort out. We know what happened to crime intelligence. It became politicized back in the days. But we want to say as Rise MZANSI that visible policing and brute force alone will not deal with this pandemic. It needs proper intelligence. It needs the working together of the Hawks, the NPA, so that we don't just arrest, but those that are arrested are prosecuted and sent to jail. And we believe that acting on intelligence and building watertight cases must be what the police focus on all of them.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Maiman.
Honorable Minister, Deputy President, fellow South Africans.
Sorry.
Honorable Kwankwa, we did
Speaker,
call you before, we did call you earlier, and you did not respond. So
I had
now on
connectivity
the
issues, my
platform,
apologies.
no, can you
No,
please
I
listen
understand.
to me?
Sorry, I apologize. Yes.
Yes. Now on the platform is Honorable Maiman.
What you would note is that, Honorable Minister, recently I was in Gqeberha, in a community in Woma. And when I arrived in Woma, it struck me when I got there, it's the fact that this is a community where the church, where young people walked in there and robbed people, was there. And it struck me on a few thoughts. The first was that citizens recognize this very difficult issue, which is that when they call the police, sometimes the police don't show up. And when the police do show up, sometimes they are demanding bribes themselves. The worst feeling that a citizen can have in this country isn't just a feeling of a fear of being robbed or facing extortion. It's the fear that comes with the fact that even when the police come, there's no help. The genuine feeling of helplessness. And this is what this debate must be about today. Because in truth, there are 500 murders a week. The reality is that we've grown at 1% for the last 10 years. And in truth, even though we speak about an increase in crimes against women, there seems to be no appropriation that has been allocated for that fight. So, Honorable Minister, I'm here to say to you, we cannot afford another talk. What we've got to be doing here today is making a declaration of war on crime. And here are my suggestions in a few ways, and I would want to work with you in achieving this. We need a new capacitation of police. The truth is, we're living with 8,000 vacancies and only 22,000 detectives in the country. That is far from enough. We will never win. The second is, once we've done that, we have to fix our police stations so that people can feel a place of hope and help when they go there. Thirdly, Minister, I want to suggest very strongly is that we need a new consensus on values. Because honestly, you cannot put a policeman in every church. There's something inherently wrong, and that's why all of us as citizens must work together to fight crime in our communities and say to ourselves, how do we partner with the police to fight crime? More seriously, I want to urge that we need a different prioritization. Before 2010, Minister, what remained patently clear was that when we prioritized murder, which is the general feeling people fear, is that we're able to focus police resources, capacitate, budget, and fight crime. And so what I'm suggesting is that let's increase the budget, let's get better police, and let's ensure more vitally that once we've done that, we give them the best vehicles to fight. Let's eradicate ethical or policemen who lack ethics and leaders who lack ethics. Because if you create the impression that if you do the crime in this country, you'll get away with it, trust me, extortionists believe the same. So in my closing, Minister, if we work with the Department of Justice, we have to improve conviction rates. Otherwise, our prison doors are revolving doors. Time for talk is over. It's time for us to act now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Kwankwa.
Thank you very
Honorable
much, House
Kwankwa.
Chair. Thank you,
Yes.
House Chair. Minister, andizibe ndikhumsha mnandi because enye into esiyidingayo ngamapolisa angasebenzisaniyo nale genge. Mna bendinelishwa lokuba ndafakwe ebhutini. Ndaphantsi ubulawa yidyongwana, ikwekwe in fact. Ibikhunyiwe ngalo mhla isenza loo nto. Kanti ibikhululwe isandokwenza olunye ulwaphulomthetho iwonishiwe. Abantu ke baseMpuma Koloni, bendiseMpuma Koloni izolo oku. Iigaraji zaseMthatha zakwaSasol zivaliwe ngenxa ye-extortion. Oogqirha baseGqeberha bazivalile ii-practices zabo ngenxa ye-extortion. Ngela xesha bekuphandwa inyewe yam akukabanjwa mntu. Kodwa ngeke ndoxoke ndithi amapolisa awenzanga umsebenzi. Awenzile umsebenzi. Asajongene noba ezi suspects endiza-identifayileyo mna. Ngokwendlela zabo ke zokwazi ukuthi ngobani bebekhona kwindawo yexhwayelo. Balinde ukubanjwa. Kodwa into eyivelileyo, Minister, ngelaa xesha kanye bekuphandwa, yinto yokuba ingxaki ikhona kwalapha emapoliseni. Kukho amapolisa asebenzisana nabantu abenza le extortion. Ndifuna abantu beCape Province, iyeke le nto Eastern Cape neWestern Cape, yayiCape Province kuqala. Aba bantu bahlala kweli phondo laseCape Province. Into azabayenze into yokuba banikele amapolisa ukuthi bayilwe le nto njengokubutshilo. Kodwa uba amapolisa ayohluleka, abantu bephondo leWestern Cape neEastern Cape bangaxakwa ukuthi asizuphila singamagwala ngenxa yotsotsi. Ayizukwenzeka. Uba amapolisa uhluleka, siza kuba ngomba. Uba ukuba ngomba kubalungisi, sizabathumela kwizinyanya zakomakwabo. Kuba into ebuhlungu into yokuba baqala koosomashishini kuphela imisebenzi ngenxa lamakhwenkwe. Emveni uba kuphela imisebenzi, bazawuthi xa bezibulele, bewabulele onke la mashishini, bacinge into yokuba nasemakhaya ngomso kuzawuthiwa ukuze ungabiwa le plasma TV, bhatala i-protection nasezindlini. Zisiqala kakubi ezintwana. Andizuxoka mna kuwe. And njengomuntu osuke ebhutini ophansi wabulawa ngalamakhwenkwe. Ukuba
Honorable
amapolisa
Kwakwa,
kwaziwalungisa.
your time is
Sizawabulala
expired.
minister sawangomba. Tunogxoka ku.
Your time is
Post.
expired. Honorable Zungula.
Ndibulele sihlalo. Minister, extortionists are brazen criminals who have got no regard for law-abiding citizens. They target everyone, including the most poor and vulnerable in our society. The national government needs to follow the lead of the KZN police in dealing decisively with criminals. The KZN police has shown the country the type of attitude we need to have towards criminals. There must be a no-nonsense approach. The people all over the country appreciate and support the work that is done by the police in KZN. The foreign-funded NGOs and the experts that have made themselves the mouthpiece of criminals at the expense of South Africans must please volunteer their skills and be in the front line of police operations. There were Amaparete minister who used to patrol in high crime areas, and their deployment assisted in reducing crime. Amaparete and other special task forces must be deployed in areas where extortion crimes arrive. Minister, you must engage the Justice Department to ensure the NPA prioritizes the prosecution of criminals arrested for extortion crimes. The security cluster must work together to ensure we deal decisively with criminality at all levels. Our people are discouraged and soon will take the law into their own hands when they see that the government seemingly protects criminals over them. Minister, your department needs to strengthen its internal integrity mechanisms and root out corrupt police officers from all levels. Corrupt police officers are the reasons why citizens lose faith in law enforcement and end up taking the law into their own hands. There are other crimes that warrant priority by the department. Other crimes such as drug trade, false prosecution, the production of fake products, and fake essay document, they also need to be dealt with urgency as well. The police raids, Minister, in South Beach, eThekwini, expose the rot of crime in South Africa. Similar raids need to be done in Sunnyside, Hillbrow, Bedford View, Central Gqeberha, and all other CBDs where all these crimes arrive. All police officers must be encouraged to use maximum force whenever their lives are under threat from extortionists and criminals. The state can't keep on burying police officers who lose their lives whilst protecting their citizens from criminals. The state must protect the policemen who protect the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Sadi.
Honorable Chair, Honorable Minister, Assalamu alaikum to all. The rapid increase of this formidable criminal act extortion has been allowed to expand to various business levels as the South African Police Services has been ineffective to deal with the problem of historical gangsterism and corruption within the corrupt within their own ranks. For far too long have gangs been at liberty to view extortion as a lucrative criminal act with high chances of not getting caught. Civil society organizations have over the past 3 decades warned government of corrupt officials within SAPS at the borders and airports. Gangs, organized crime, and mafias have been exploiting the government's weak security measures to deal effectively with them, and this weakness further led to the community's lack of trust in the powers that be. We can see that the reality of extortion, the situation is far more serious than is perhaps realized. It has infiltrated not only various levels of businesses such as construction, coffee and spaza shops, minibus taxis industry, private transportations, etc. These extortion economies are interlinked and they use extreme violence and hitmen to carry out the deadly attacks on innocent people who refuse to pay their protection fees. While Al-Jama notes the recent efforts being made by SAPS, we question as to why they've been dragging their feet in apprehending these criminals. SAPS know who the gangsters, drug dealers, the mafias, extortionists are. It is disheartening to note that even our sailors who live in Kailicha and working at Simonstown Naval Base are being expected to pay fees for protection while to safeguard their homes. Our JAMA calls on government to remove corrupt officials and to look towards meaningful measures to identify and eradicate extortion by establishing a specialized unit with specialized skills, ensuring proper collection of evidence and effective prosecution of these criminals. Monitoring and tracking extortion economies, act against organized crime syndicates, policing on extortion activities must be proactive. Communities are the government's eyes and ears on the ground. Systems must be put in place to gain the lost trust they have in SAPS so that they can report activities of extortion. It is useless to make arrest only and to mess up cases, as all these have rippling effects on our country's social economic stability. I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Adams.
Thank you, House Chair. Honorable members, Honorable Deputy President, incoming President, Honorable Minister. I've listened to this House talk and I've listened to my Buddha, Honorable Souls, Lord the Minister, for taking 55 minutes to understand the problem. I cannot believe that my minister does not understand that poverty breeds crime. Minister, we can lock up every extortionist in this country. But while in the Western Cape, we're planning to lay off 2,500 teachers, we are breeding more extortionists. Minister, I've come here, I've listened to you, and you've said very little. Extortion is born out of the fact of economic exclusion. In the Western Cape, Ho and Ingalls contracted to the Western Cape government, gave a gang boss 2 million rand of our tax rands. A case was made. No arrest followed, but it's confirmed. Minister, if that was a black-owned company, they'd be in prison today. Minister, let me assure you, as long as our local businessmen are not included in the tender process, in the benefits of everything, this thing will never stop. Minister, it is apparent that this government is okay with criminals taxing the poor. It becomes problematic when they start taxing the rich. Minister, this is not your problem. It's a socio-economic problem. SAPS is at the wrong end of this. Until we include all of our people in the benefit of all of this country, this problem can only grow. I stand here today, Minister, to bring you a very, very simple message. Speak to your colleagues. Speak to your colleagues. Tell them to start including all of South Africa in the spending of all of South Africa, and this problem goes away. Minister, Wendy Kloppers was shot 16 times in Delft because criminals demanded a share of the pie. Who shoots a woman 16 times? That is not a human being. But our society, Minister, it breeds people that are less than human. I ask, Minister, I ask that you do the right thing. That while you can arrest 700 extortionists, our justice system will only sentence 5% of them. The rest of them will be released in the same communities where they fed off. It is a cycle. It is a cycle that is going nowhere. Minister, I wanted to one last thing before I leave. As a colored person in the city of Cape Town, I can't work in a township. Kalicha doesn't want me. Samora doesn't want me. But this house doesn't talk about that. As a colored person, I can't be schooled in the townships alongside my black brothers. But this house doesn't talk about this. Are colored people in South Africa persona non grata? Thank you.
Thank you. PAC.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. The PAC welcomes the statement by the Minister. The crime of extortion is growing. It is moving towards rural areas. This is an issue that goes beyond policing. It is war. As Minister highlighted, we have to have a hand on specialized unit that will not be distracted by any other thing. We call on communities to utilize hotlines to blow the whistles against this crime and other crimes. Minister must condemn more with criminals and defeat them. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Mahlatsi.
Thank you, Speaker. Greetings to the Progressive Caucus. Honorable Minister, extortions, once perceived as an isolated crime, has now metastasized into a nationwide threat that demand immediate and decisive action from our law enforcement agency. Extortion is no longer confined to underworld or limited particular sectors. It has spread across industries, from small business to large corporations, from rural areas to urban centers. This cancerous growth of criminal activity is crippling the enterprise, discouraging investment, and eroding public trust in the government's ability to protect the citizens. The most alarming trend we have witnessed is the rise of organized crime syndicates that operate within the near impunity, exploiting loopholes within our legal frameworks, at times leveraging the very structure that means to protect us. The question we must ask ourselves is this: how did we allow it to get this far? Despite various promises and policy interventions, the response from Minister of Police has been largely reactionary and frankly inadequate. We have seen a fragmented approach with police force often ill-equipped, under-resourced, and overwhelmed by the sophisticated and rich these criminal networks. The extortion syndicates operate with a level of coordination and intelligence that exceed the current law enforcement capabilities. They leverage advanced technology, encrypted communication channels, and complex financial networks to evade detection and prosecution. Yet our response remains stuck in outdated practices that fail to address the modern realities of organized crime. Honorable Minister, what we need is not just a boots on the ground, but fundamental shift towards intelligence-driven policing. These involve the integration of advanced analytics, real-time data sharing, the strategic partnership with private sectors. We must leverage the technology, predict, prevent, and dismantle the criminal enterprise before they can cause harm. Moreover, these are urgent needs to enhance our intelligence capabilities. This means invest in training and development specialized unit that can infiltrate and disrupt criminal organizations. It also requires commitment of breaking down silos within our law enforcement agencies.
Honorable Mahlatsi, your time has expired. And I gave you extra 5 seconds. Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Flakis.
Honorable Chair, Deputy President, Honorable Ministers and Deputy Ministers. Minister, we are welcoming your outlining of the interventions by the police to deal with crime in general, including the crime of extortion that is rising within our communities. These interventions are aimed at building safer communities, which is a priority of the ANC. Our people want to live in safer communities without fear of criminals, and they want to engage in business activities without any hindrance from criminals. Our point of departure and our point of arrival is that all of us have rights under the Constitution, in Chapter 2 of the Constitution. Some of the fundamental rights include the right to dignity, the right to life, the right to freedom of trade. Therefore, it should be born in the minds of criminals that they harm their fellow citizens when they engage in activities of extortion, when they frustrate and stop construction activities demanding money for services they didn't render. Undermining these fundamental rights of our people is as outlined in the Constitution. To these criminals, we must say that no matter how powerful they are, they cannot have a right to undermine the rights of other people. The law enforcement agency must stop and rein on them. We can characterize these crimes of extortion as crimes of economic sabotage because it disrupts economic activities, construction industries through so-called construction mafias. Crime of extortion robs some of businesses, especially small businesses, of their hard-earned revenue to criminals who thrive and threatening our people in our communities. It goes without saying that many aspirant business person will not invest in our economy because of the fear of extortionists. Extortionists are militating against the noble efforts of the government to build safer communities, the efforts of creating conducive environments of economic activities to thrive, disrupting government infrastructure development, and therefore extortionists target various businesses, including the transport sector. Some schools have to close and learners have to miss time at school and lessons because of extortionists wants to be part of projects that is run at school. These crimes of extortion are rising in many provinces, including the Eastern Cape, Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, Limpopo, Northwest, and the Western Cape. The concern is that crimes can be many, but many of our people are afraid to come forth because of fear. We note the deployment of extra police and the capacity in the Eastern Cape to deal with the crimes of extortion. This deployment follows the engagement of the police with stakeholders in Mthatha and Gqeberha. This deployment of police will also focus on clamping down gangsterism, which is also linking to extortion. It is important to acknowledge the contribution of civil society and traditional leaders. It is in this regard, we would like to commend the King of Abatem, Uzwelibanzi, for ensuring that acts of extortion in Mthatha areas are stopped and ensuring that nothing disturbs schools from operating and teaching and learning should proceed. It in this spirit of Zwelibanzi, we urge civil society and institutions of traditional leaders to work together with the police and law enforcement agencies to root out these crimes and of extortion in our communities.
Honorable Lakis,
Our firm
I'm
belief
sorry to disturb you. Honorable members, please. We can speak, but can we not drown the speaker? We cannot hear from this side. Thank you. Continue.
Our firm belief is that police alone cannot win the fight against crime. Crime is everybody's business, and therefore we should lend a hand. We commend your collective and cooperative approach, Minister, amongst the law enforcement agencies, and also all spheres of government. We call on society through the CPFs and other civil society organizations to join hands with all law enforcement agencies to fight the crime in our country. We therefore call on you, Minister, to convene a national dialogue in the form of community imbizo so that we don't leave our communities behind on what we want to do. We call on the society through the CPF and our civil societies organization to join hands with law enforcement. We cannot surrender our country to criminals. We have to fight so hard. We have fought so hard for our country's democracy, and many of our compatriots have died for this freedom, and therefore nobody has the right to undermine the freedom we have been visiting crime upon our people. Therefore, Minister, we welcome your intervention, and I thank you.
Thank you. Our last speaker, the Honorable the Minister.
Thank you very much, House Chair. I think the first point we need to make at this stage is that we have an honor of this debate being attended by our Deputy President. We can now make, after he himself listened to all of us who were debating here, we can now make firm undertakings and declarations. And the first declaration is that, Deputy President, we are one, we are speaking in one voice in this House. I noted Honorable Ndlozi and others, but him in particular, it was another way of agreeing with what we are saying here, but in his own words. And what we are saying, all of us, we are rejecting crime in South Africa and criminals. And he said it very clear, but in his own words. Now, number two, I do want to emphasize that we have the plans. And the plans is what we have and are working on. And very soon these plans will bear fruit. I don't think we should trivialize this matter and not emphasize that we're speaking in one voice and we stand one side with criminals, because they will think that some of us are on the other side and only other people are on these others. Let's stand together. That's why we are going out to make sure that across the spheres of government, we stand together. Of course, socio-economic conditions, Honorable Adams, but you can't wait until we fix all those problems. Yes, they have to be fixed of a socio-economic nature, but not speak as if you tolerate crime. And you say, let's tolerate crime for now until we fix, because you are going to be the next victim yourself. So separate lines, just stand on one side and allow criminals to be alone, and let's face them together. Then fix the economic challenges in the country. Next is, yes, we agree that we have to work in synergy, especially with Department of Justice. And that is what we're doing. And the first meeting of this 7th administration of the JCPS is on Friday. And we've identified loopholes that need to be tightened up so that criminals don't get arrested and then in the afternoon they are with us. For that matter, I do want to emphasize that police know criminals, and that's why they arrest them, and they even shoot them. And we're encouraging them to go on those two. Arrest where you can, but where you have to deal with them head on, you do, and that will happen. And it is going to happen in all other provinces. But finally, some of the stories are not necessarily true, like the garage and Tata. We've gone there, interviewed those people. And they say, no, in this garage, I run short of money, it's not that, and so on. No. Police themselves have done so. They have done so. They've taken statements and they have them. But you can also go to them. But the main thing for us is that police must investigate all alleged crime, whatever it is. But you are free to bring more evidence and they will consider it. But all in all, House Chair, we are going out to confront crime and use whatever it means to deal with them so that we have a crime-free South Africa. And it is important that our children and all of us ensure that South Africa is free of criminality. The issues of synergies internally, yes, there are quite a number of challenges. There are rogue police. The only good thing is that there are a few. If you compare, it's just that any bad thing that one policeman does or policewoman does, it taints the image of all police. But the majority of them are doing very well, and we can trust them and work with them and rely on them for safety and protection in the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, the Honorable the Minister. Honorable members, that concludes party responses to the statement. I request members to stand and wait for the chair and the maids to leave the chamber. That concludes the business for the day and the house is adjourned.